It's a Heidel minicast. And now, Scott Clark.
We're on page 139, at least that's where we're starting, in Machen's Christianity and Liberalism, and we're in chapter 6, where he's discussing the doctrine of salvation, and particularly the application of redemption by the Holy Spirit. Today, don't forget about the Great Lakes Reformed Conference, Worship by the Book, October 14th. 2023. It's a Saturday. It starts at 8:30, goes to 4 p.m., and it's at Oakland Hills Community Church, OPC, in Farmington Hills, Michigan, featuring Kim Riddlebarger, D.G. Hart, and yours truly, plus a Q&A session. And it's $20. You can find information at heidelblog.net/GLRC.
If the Heidelcast helps you, won't you help us keep it going? Please make the coffer clink by clicking on the PayPal link or by sending a check to Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027.
Machen wrote, "That doctrine represents one aspect of the salvation which was wrought by Christ and is applied by his Holy Spirit. But there is another aspect of the same salvation. Regeneration means a new life, but there is also a new relation in which the believer stands toward God. That new relation is instituted by justification, the act of God by which a sinner is pronounced righteous in his sight because of the atoning death of Christ. It is not necessary to ask whether justification comes before regeneration or vice versa. In reality, they are two aspects of one salvation, and they both stand at the very beginning of the Christian life. The Christian has not merely the promise of a new life, but he already has a new life, and he has not merely the promise of being pronounced righteous in God's sight, though the blessed pronouncement will be confirmed on the judgment day, but he is already pronounced righteous here and now. At the beginning of every Christian life, there stands not a process, but a definite act of God. That does not mean that every Christian can tell exactly at what moment he was justified and born again. Some Christians indeed are really able to give day and hour of their conversion. It is a grievous sin to ridicule the experience of such men. Sometimes, indeed, they are inclined to ignore the steps in the providence of God which prepared for the great change, but they are right on the main point. They know that when, on such and such a day, they kneeled in prayer and were still in their sins, and when they rose from their knees, they were children of God, never to be separated from him. Such experience is a very holy thing. On the other hand, it is a mistake to demand that it should be universal. There are Christians who can give day and hour of their conversion, but the great majority do not know exactly at what moment they were saved. The effects of the act are plain, but the act itself was done in the quietness of God. Such, very often, is the experience of children brought up by Christian parents. It is not necessary that all should pass through agonies of soul before being saved. There are those to whom faith comes peacefully and easily through the nurture of Christian homes. But however it be manifested, the beginning of the Christian life is an act of God. It is an act of God and not an act of man. That does not mean, however, that in the beginning of the Christian life, God deals with us as with sticks or stones, unable to understand what is being done. On the contrary, he deals with us as persons. Salvation has a place in the conscious life of man. God uses in our salvation a conscious act of the human mind, an act which, though it is itself the work of God's Spirit, is at the same time an act of man. That act of man which God produces and employs in salvation is faith. At the center of Christianity is the doctrine of justification by faith. In exalting faith, we are not immediately putting ourselves in contradiction to modern thought. Indeed, faith is being exalted very high by men of the most modern type. But what kind of faith? There emerges the difference of opinion. Faith is being exalted so high today that men are being satisfied with any kind of faith. Just so it is faith. It makes no difference what is believed, we are told. Just so the blessed attitude of faith is there. The undogmatic faith, it is said, is better than the dogmatic because it is purer faith. faith less weakened by the alloy of knowledge. Now it is perfectly clear that such employment of faith merely as a beneficent state of the soul is bringing some results. Faith in the most absurd things sometimes produces the most beneficent and far-reaching results. But the disturbing thing is that all faith has an object. The scientific observer may not think that it is the object that does the work. From his vantage point, he may see clearly that it is really the faith, considered simply as a psychological phenomenon, that is the important thing, and that any other object would have answered as well. But the one who does the believing is always convinced just exactly that it is not the faith, but the object of the faith which is helping him. The moment he becomes convinced that it is merely the faith that is helping him, the faith disappears. For faith always involves a conviction of the objective truth or trustworthiness of the object. If the object is not really trustworthy, then the faith is a false faith. It is perfectly true that such a false faith will often help a man. Things that are false will accomplish a great many useful things in the world. If I take a counterfeit coin and buy a dinner with it, the dinner is every bit as good as if the coin were the product of the mint. And what a very useful thing dinner is. But just as I am on my way downtown to buy a dinner for a poor man, an expert tells me that my coin is a counterfeit. The miserable, heartless theorizer, while he is going into uninteresting, learned details about the primitive history of that coin, a poor man is dying for want of bread. So it is with faith. Faith is so very useful, they tell us that we must not scrutinize its basis in truth. But the great trouble is, such an avoidance of scrutiny itself involves the destruction of faith, for faith is essentially dogmatic. Despite all you can do, you cannot remove the element of intellectual assent from it. Faith is the opinion that some person will do something for you. If that person really will do that thing for you, then the faith is true. If he will not do it, then the faith is false. In the latter case, not all the benefits in the world will make the faith true. Though it has transformed the world from darkness to light, though it has produced thousands of glorious, healthy lives, it remains a pathological phenomenon. It is false, and sooner or later, it is sure to be found out.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by HeidelbergReformationAssociation.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.